Hello children, this is the continuation of the chapter Reproduction in Plants, and today we'll go through sexual reproduction. Till now we studied about asexual reproduction, which doesn't involve male and female gametes. Now we will see sexual reproduction in plants. So if you see the diagram here, this is the sexual reproductive part of the plant, that is flower. So in this you can see the male reproductive part and the female reproductive part. Male reproductive part is known as stamen, that contains anther and filament. Female reproductive part is known as pistil, which contains stigma. This is stigma. Style, here is the style. Ovary, this bulged part is ovary, and ovule. Inside it you can see a seed-like structure present, which is known as ovule. Other than male and female gamete, two more parts are present, that is the sepal, which is the green leaf-like structure present just below the petals, and the another one is petal, which is present, which is a colorful part of the flower that helps in attracting the insects. Okay, so these are the two reproductive parts of the flower, that is the stamen and pistil, the male and the female reproductive part of the flower. So here we can see the flower can be classified into two types: complete flower, incomplete flower. Complete flower contains both male and female reproductive part. Incomplete flower will contain either male or the female reproductive part, means either the stamen will be present or the pistil will be present. Okay, so this was the introduction of the flower and the two types of flower, complete flower and incomplete flower. Then coming to the next slide, pollination. So as we have studied in your previous classes, that pollination means what? Transfer of anther to the stigma. Okay, transfer of anther to the stigma of another flower or of the same flower. So here we can see the pollination can be of two types: self-pollination, cross-pollination. What is the meaning of self-pollination? Transfer of pollen grains from anther to the stigma of the same flower or of different flower but of same plant. Okay, I repeat, self-pollination means movement of pollen grains from anther to stigma of the same flower or of different flower but of same plant. Now what is cross-pollination? Cross-pollination is the movement of anther to the stigma of two different flowers of two different plant but of same species. Same species, suppose this is the rose plant, so this should also be the rose plant. If this is the marigold plant, then the pollination won't occur. Okay, so this is about your self-pollination and cross-pollination. In the next slide, we will study about agents of pollination. What is the meaning of agents of pollination? Agents means what? The substances or the organism, those are involved that helps in pollinating the flowers. First is insect pollinated flower. Insect pollinated flower is pollinated by the insects like wasp, honeybee, different flies, butterflies, which sits from one flower to another flower and thus resulting in pollination. Second is wind pollinated flower. Wind pollinated flower that occurs because of wind. You can see the structures, they move by the help of wind from one flower to another flower. And the third one is water pollinated flowers. So here the water is acting as the agent and the stamen is moving from one plant to another by the help of the flow of water. So these three were the agents of pollination. Coming to the next slide, that is artificial pollination. What is the meaning of artificial pollination? When the word artificial comes, that means the pollination is done by man, means that involves the activity of human being. Okay, so this why this pollination is being done? To get a required plant. Like suppose if there are certain characters in different plants. Okay, different plants contain different characters. So if I want all the characters in my plant, so I can bring them in my plant. I can insert those characters in my plant by the process named as artificial pollination. So here you can see the first. Now here comes the first step, that is selection of plant. Now what is the meaning of selection of plant? Suppose you have taken two plants, plant A and plant B. Okay, now you want the characteristic of plant A and plant B in your plant, that is plant C. Okay, so these are the two plants which you have selected. Then you will remove the stamen of one plant. Suppose you have removed the stamen. Stamen means the male part is removed from B, so only the female part will be there, and in A both male and female part will be there. Okay, so here you have removed the male part of the plant. Then comes bagging. Now what you will do, you will bag the flowers of this plant, of the plant B. You will bag the flowers, means you will tie the flowers with a polythene bag and you will leave it to get matured. Now when the flowers get matured, what you will do, the last step, that is you will bring the flower of this plant towards the flower of this plant and you will dust over the stigma, over the female reproductive part of plant B. Okay, got it? See, here the male part is present, the male reproductive part is present. You will take the male reproductive part, that is the stamen, and you will dust it over the female reproductive part of the plant, flowers of the plant B. Okay, and then you will again bag it. You will again tie the flowers with a polythene bag. Now the flowers will start fertilizing. When the fertilization occurs, after that the plant will give out seeds and the seeds will give a new plant. Okay, so here what we can see, that I can get the characteristic of A and I can get the characteristic of B in my plant, that is C. Got the idea? Now the method of artificial pollination is also known as hybridization. Now you might have heard the term before, hybridization. Okay, now these plantlet, the new plant which I am getting, that is C, that is known as hybrids. Understood? Hybridization, in simple words, mixing the characteristic of two plants together, that is known as hybridization. Okay, now coming to the next slide, that is fertilization. Fertilization is the important process that takes place to give rise to a seed, that is with the help of which a new plant occurs. Now what happens in this fertilization, you can see this is the stigma part, this is the style, and this is the ovary. Now the pollen grain, when it will land on the stigma, what will happen? Slowly it will start forming the pollen tube and slowly it will start coming towards the ovary. Inside the ovary, what is present? Inside the ovary, ovule is present, and inside the ovule, egg is present. Okay, so this pollen grain, it contains the male gamete and here is present the female gamete. So what will happen? The male nucleus will come and fuse with the female nucleus. So now here the fertilization takes place. So fertilization means what? fusion of male and female nucleus or male and female gamete is known as fertilization. So here the fertilization takes place and then the seeds starts forming inside the ovary. Okay, now what happens? Now this ovary will transform into fruit and the ovule will transform into seed. Take for example, in a mango, the outer fleshy part is the ovary. Okay, the ovary has turned into the fruit and the inner seed, that is the ovule, means the ovule has turned into seed. Okay, now if you can see here, I'm just showing you the cycle, what happens actually after fertilization. Now you can see here is the ovary and ovule present. Now this will form zygote. When the male and the female gamete will fuse together, they will form a single cell, that is zygote. Now when they will form zygote, slowly what will happen, the embryo will develop. Embryo starts developing, means a small plant starts developing inside the ovule. And then what will happen, the petals wilt, means the petal starts drying and it will start drooping down. After that the seeds develop from the ovule. Now here you can see, here is the ovule just at the center, then the ovule will turn to form seed. Okay, and then the ovary will start forming the fruit. Okay, now you can see that the petals will start wilting down and your sepals will also start wilting down. In some case the sepals are attached with the fruit itself, like in case of brinjal, you can see the leaf like structure, those are nothing but the sepals. Okay, then after that you can see that the seeds, the ovule will turn into seed and ovary will turn into fruit. Okay, now leaving these two, the other structures will start withering. Okay, so here what we can see, that the seeds will be formed by the from the ovule and the fruit will be formed from ovary. Okay, so this is how the fertilization takes place and the formation of fruits takes place. Okay, so here we have completed our chapter. So just try to find out the question answers.